This is Making Stitches, and this time, following on from the last episode which featured the Woven in Kirklees Festival, I'm sharing a chat I had with Kirstie Macleod, the artist behind the amazing red dress which was on display in West Yorkshire for the first time at the Woven Festival. The red dress is such an awe-inspiring piece of work, a collaborative embroidery project worked on by 380 different embroiderers from around the world, many of which have an important message to share.
As well as survivors in Kosovo and in Bosnia, there's also been work created in Rwanda and DR Congo, and all going well, the dress now will be travelling to Rwanda next year, which will be another epic and very beautiful and powerful experience, I have no doubt. So whilst the dress was in creation, at specific moments also work was created that needed to be on there. For instance, connecting with refugees from Ukraine in Warsaw. That was in the September after the war began, I believe in the March. So still very fresh. So a group of, it was about 10 women came over 2 days in Warsaw in Poland to stitch on the dress, and they would sing traditional Ukrainian songs, and there was not a dry eye in the gallery. It was just so moving and beautiful, and all that is imbued into the dress, those songs, that energy. Also Iran, so there's an anonymous embroiderer who has created a panel in Iran. That was very important to get that on there when the uprising was happening.
Hello and welcome to Making Stitches. I'm Lindsay. I'm a lifelong crafter and a former journalist. This podcast lets me marry two of my passions, creativity and people stories. And what I'm sharing with you today is very much about people stories. The Red Dress is a global embroidery project created by Kirstie Macleod, a British artist who spent 14 years creating the dress with the help of 380 embroiderers from 51 different countries. Some of the dress's embroidered panels reflect long-established embroidery techniques which have been passed down through generations. Others reflect trauma, resilience and healing. The Red Dress shares the stories of marginalised communities. It sparks conversations and is on a tour visiting many countries around the world to amplify the voices of those who've contributed to its creation. I can only scratch the surface of the story of the Red Dress in this podcast episode, but I feel it's so important to share what I can. I feel honoured to have seen the Red Dress when it was on display at Woven in Kirklees in the summer, and hearing Kirstie speak at the festival and share some of the stories behind it was so powerful, and I was thrilled when she said yes to a longer chat for the podcast. Here it is now. Thanks so much for saying yes to coming on to Making Stitches. It was so nice to meet you in person at Woven in Kirklees back on World Stitch Day, hearing your story, and it just felt like there was so much more that I wanted to talk to you about than that quick 5 minutes, so thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to chat.
Fabulous. Can I first of all take you back to like your childhood and when craft and sewing and being creative first came into your life?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up all over the world in so many different countries, which was incredible and really rich. And, just the exposure to so many different cultures, traditions, ways of being, really, as well as all the art and the textiles and the food and the languages. It definitely ignited in me this desire to keep reaching out and keep connecting with different cultures. I was so used to doing that. I think it just feels like it's just how I've always been. But both my grandmothers and my mother just very skilled with the needle and thread. None of them did it professionally, but one grandmother makes these incredible tapestries. The other one is an epic knitter. She can literally just knit anything from thin air. It's incredible. And then my mum used to stitch lots of our own clothes. I've got two sisters. She used to make dresses for us quite often. So it was just always around me. And I remember particularly just watching the meditative quality of it, particularly with my grandmothers, just of an evening, sitting there quietly, just quietly stitching whilst we were all kind of running around and stuff. And that being this really special time. So I learned to embroider myself when I was 9. We were living in Nigeria at the time, and I went to a local craft class run by an incredible Indian woman. And yeah, we made cushion covers. I still have them actually, with flowers and lace and things. But we embroidered the flowers and the leaves. And I remember just straight away being so captivated by the process. I think mostly because I've got a very hyperactive brain. It's very fast. Everything's with embroidery, you have to slow down and take it slow. So as a child and in my younger years, it was all about kind of slowing down in myself and that process and connecting to my own body and breath, like meditation, really. And then as I got older, I realized through the red dress, particularly, it just how powerful it is to do in community and how connecting and how bonding it is. And actually, it's used as a therapy all over the world. And many of the groups I've connected with through the dress are supported through the use of embroidery, both as a way to gain a skill, earn a living, but also as a healing modality and a way to connect with other individuals at the same time.
Yeah, it's so true though, isn't it? I mean, it's just when the world's going on around you and things are out of your control and you can just sit and have that quiet time with your hands, it just works wonders, doesn't it?
Very therapeutic, yeah.
So from your childhood, doing a fast forward to the situation where we're in now, or certainly in the years leading up to it, what was it that set you off on your red dress journey? Because in its initial form, it was very different to what we see today.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I studied textiles as a BA, and then I did an MA in visual language, which basically was about creating liveness in your work. I was also painting and drawing. But during this MA, it was great. We learned how to make films and do theatrical lighting and soundscapes. And it just brought this kind of idea of liveness and performance into my textile-based practice. So when I was in that year and for the few years afterwards, I was creating a huge amount of these installations, you'd probably call them, also films, animations, but they would always be centered around textile processes and often involving garments themselves. In fact, I still am. I'm very interested in the relationship between an individual and their clothing, particularly women in dresses, and how it can be, on one hand, this very positive, enriching, nourishing experience, and also very helpful in the performance of self and identity and, creating this persona of who we are to the outside world, but can also be very oppressive and constricting. That feeling when you don't like what you're wearing, or it's too tight or uncomfortable, and it has the opposite effect. So I used to create all sorts of different pieces, investigating this kind of dynamic, and particularly using the garments as a way to articulate hidden emotions and feelings and performance voices. And they would often be pretty feminist works. They'd often be looking at ideas of male gaze and oppression, lots about oppression and containment and inequality and social justice issues. So yeah, I did a lot of them. The red dress is probably about number 7 or 8. And they're all huge, big production type situations. There was one in an underwater piece I did in the Guernsey Sea with a dress knitted from 20,000 meters of fishing line. There was another dress that was 15 foot tall and dissolved for an opera, dissolved over 15 minutes. So they were all kind of epic in their scale, but then nothing comes close to the vastness of the red dress. And that came in very surprisingly because I was invited to go to exhibit one of the other dresses, Emilan, in Art Dubai. And then they said to me, look, we've got some funding from the British Council. They want to fund you to make a new piece for the fair. So I was like, what? how does that happen? Because as an artist, usually you have your idea and then it could take, months, years to get funding. I spend a lot of my time now with the dress trying to raise funding. So it just literally landed on my lap. I went to a cafe, sketched it out in probably under a minute. And it was very quickly this opportunity to just bring together everything that was the most important to me at that time, to create a dress that would evolve over time and place, that would crucially involve a collaboration, a cross-cultural, global collaboration. I really wanted it to have that reach, that vastness, but also to have that time. I set myself a 10-year plan to do it. So that was the initial idea, to celebrate individuality and identity, to celebrate different cultures. But the key element of it was without prejudice, without oppression, without any hierarchies, that have everyone on the same playing field. Because I was so sick and tired of seeing the opposite around, and having lived in so many different countries, but also in England as well, just seeing this inequality that was, just far too present. And then after the dress got a little bit of momentum, I then realised, okay, maybe this has got the potential to be a platform for the more vulnerable voices. And that's really exciting, to try and elevate marginalised communities and voices. And that's when the magic really began to happen, when I steered it off in that direction.
Absolutely. And why red? What made you choose that colour?
Yeah, so many different reasons, but actually probably the simplest explanation is because you can't ignore it. I really wanted people to take notice of this dress and for it to stand out and have that kind of. So red is associated with so many different emotions like love and passion, but also anger and rage. It's also like stop and danger, but it's also a revered colour, isn't it? Especially in red silk, like in the silk trade, and also many countries in Asia would have their wedding dresses in red. I wanted the dress to, feel very special and important. With all those things combined, I was like, right, burgundy red, blood red, it needs to be.
It's certainly a striking colour, that's for sure. You talked about how important it was to engage so many different people and different communities from all over the world in this project. How on earth did you go about deciding how to take the next step and actually engage these people?
So it was slow at the beginning, it really was. I had a great network from being a fine artist in London for about 6-7 years, I think, at that point. So that was helpful. Also, I'd been tutoring at the Royal School of Needlework, teaching them drawing, so not stitching, teaching the foundation students drawing. So they were also useful, but actually by far the most useful were my parents, because we had travelled so much. My dad especially, he has so many contacts all over the world. So I was literally just emailing, I was asking them for email addresses from all their friends and contacts. And thousands of emails, and very little came to anything, but some of them did. And then after a few years of the project, probably maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe 4 years, then it was people beginning to approach me. So that was incredible, like all just flipped on its head. And actually, for the rest of the project, aside from a few different countries that I particularly wanted to be represented on the dress, it was pretty much all the other way around. So people approaching me or charities approaching me, and that was wonderful.
Fabulous. Now, I remember you saying when you were giving your talk at Woven in Kirklees that you really struggled trying to get the news out, the story out about the dress, and then suddenly a blog picked up the story and the story went viral. What did that teach you about, I guess, the struggle, but be persistent and stick at it, because something may well happen in the end if you stick around for long enough.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, it was so hard, and I was a single mum, doing it alongside paid work, on benefits. A lot of it was just so hard, and it was just such a huge passion project for me, and I couldn't not do it. You know what I mean? And people, like my closest friends and family, would be a bit kind of like, really, are you sure this is a good idea? And I'm like, I'm on a mission, And I remember one of my sisters saying to me after about 8 years, and she's like, do you know what? It's all going to come. It's all going to happen. The amount of energy and love and time you're putting into this, it will all come. Just keep going. And I always remember that. But yeah, this, as you said, 2020 came, and obviously the world was in turmoil, and we were all, terrified and scared. And it was just this real time of shifts, wasn't it? And movement within the global community. And lo and behold, Ataya's Mind, who I'd never heard of, on Facebook, shared this post. All I knew was that my inbox was like ping, 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 ping for about 2 or 3 days. And I was like, what on earth? I mean, great, but what on earth's going on? And then a friend of mine tagged me in this post. So it taught me lots of things. I think, first of all, that the universe does have your back, and even if it does take 8 or 9 years, to actually really get the momentum. but also it's timing. Like if it had launched earlier, I wouldn't have been ready in myself to hold it, so it was the perfect time for me to be able to, because it is vast. And things like public speaking, I would never have been able to do it in those first few years. I had such a huge fear of speaking publicly, and now I do it all the time. But also, yes, I think it was a lot to do with me needing to be ready, but also the dress being ready, and all the kind of intention and the meaning and the coverage as well. All these things kind of all aligned at just the right time. So I think trusting the timing and the flow of the universe, and knowing that things do happen when they're meant to.
Absolutely. I'm a great believer in that, I have to say. Yeah. No, so the embroiderers that you had involved in the project, I think 380, is that right? Yes. And so many of them have come from quite marginalised communities who have stories of struggle and hardship behind them. What was it like meeting these people? Because I know it's been more than just a case of posting fabric off to people to sew. You've actually got to meet people and been involved in groups and things. What's it been like? What kind of stories, personal stories, have really touched you in this whole process?
Yeah. So I think over the years, I've really had to do a lot of self-work to be able to hold these experiences and integrate them. So I'm not a therapist, but I do need to be able to hold space. And I do need to, there's like an initial period of time of trust between that person or that group and me. And I think, when I actually go to the spaces, like there's definitely, for me, I'm nervous because I really want to do the best I can, and I want to be able to, I guess, first of all, present the dress and the project in the best way to them, but also to help make them feel safe, and then to also hopefully give them an enriching experience and an uplifting experience. And I'm blessed to say that that's always been the case, even if, initially it was... So for instance, the trip to Bosnia and Herzegovina to connect with the 15 survivors of conflict-related sexual violence was probably the most challenging for me emotionally, mentally and spiritually, but also the most impactful. Like, it was just incredible meeting the women and witnessing them through their journey of finally being able to share their voices. So the dress was a small part of that. They were then going on to create this huge exhibition, which is, I think, hopefully changing a lot of how survivors are treated in Bosnia. Initially, apparently they were a bit frosty about me coming because they said, how could she even have a sense of what we've been through? And the charity support lady said, well, just give her a chance. She wants to come and show you this dress, and I think you're going to like it. And, if you want to, you can embroider onto it. And they were a bit frosty with me when I walked in. And I just slowly began to set the dress up, and they kind of carried on talking and doing their own thing around the outside of the room. But as soon as the dress was up, they did begin to feel interested. And then as soon as I began talking about the dress and the panels and the other women and the other survivors and all this, they became so engaged. And then they all wanted to work on the dress, and we had this incredibly powerful time. So I think in my own self, it's like two things. It's first of all at the front, making sure that I'm holding space, and creating a positive, supportive energy in the space. And then underneath that, and then what I tend to that evening is all my own emotions of overwhelm, pain, shock. And there's been some situations where there's almost feelings of guilt, like, how did I get this life? And why did that woman have that life? Like, what actually separates us? We're the same, and yet why has she had to go through that? So that's been a difficult tension. But I think, it all comes back to the dress, and I keep the dress as, in all ways possible, like a heart space, and a space of love and safety. And I think, and I hope that all the individuals involved and those who see it, that's what comes through. And it's a supportive, not just me, it's the dress, but it's all the women and men and non-binary individuals, but predominantly the women are all there supporting each other. People say that a lot when they wear it, or when they're with it, they say they can almost feel the support of the other women, the comfort.
That's incredible. I got goose pimples hearing you say that. That was remarkable, and yeah, what an amazing story. That's just one of so many, isn't it? You mentioned there about the women who get to wear the dress. Very few people have so far. How do you go about deciding this is the right person at the right time to put this dress on?
Yeah, so I get so many requests. But yeah, the opportunity to wear the dress is solely for the embroiderers or women that have contributed to the project in some way. So, for instance, a curator in Bosnia of the exhibition, she wore it, but otherwise it's the embroiderers. But I've had requests from people wanting to wear it for weddings, proms. But I even had performances. One of the Olympics, there was a performance someone wanted to wear it for. And then the most surreal was the princess from Madagascar who wanted to wear it for her coronation. And I just say no, sorry. It's always just got to be about the embroiderers. It's their dress. I'm not interested in the celebrity side of things. It's for me, the focus has always got to be on the embroiderers, on their stories and their voices.
Absolutely. And obviously you've talked about that really traumatic story, but how has other global events like COVID, unrest in the world like the war in Ukraine and that, how have these things actually impacted on the dress, on the things that have been embroidered, and just the story of how it's all come together?
Yeah, so hugely. So as well as survivors in Kosovo and in Bosnia, there's also been work created in Rwanda and DR Congo, and all going well, the dress now will be travelling to Rwanda next year, which will be another epic and very beautiful and powerful experience, I have no doubt. But then, so whilst the dress was in creation, at specific moments, also work was created that needed to be on there. For instance, connecting with refugees from Ukraine in Warsaw. That was in the September after the war began, I believe, in the March. So still very fresh. So a group of, it was about 10 women came over 2 days in Warsaw in Poland. To stitch on the dress, and they would sing traditional Ukrainian songs, and that it was not a dry eye in the gallery. It was just so moving and beautiful, and all that is imbued into the dress. Those songs, that energy. Also Iran. So there's an anonymous embroiderer who has created a panel in Iran. That was very important to get that on there when the uprising was happening. So a COVID as well. There's not been a panel created about COVID apart from I did a tiny little emblem of the COVID molecule somewhere on the bodice just to remind myself of that time. But there were also lots of dates put on to mark particular occasions. There are names of particular women that need to be on there for various reasons. I think I like the idea of, say, in 100 years' time, of the people being able to view maybe not the dress then, but the photographs and the archives and cataloguing of the embroideries, and be like, oh, that was what it was like to be alive and be a human in that time. Because nothing is separated out, it's all on there. There's no borders or boundaries, and there's lots of work by first-time stitchers. There's children. There's even there's 4 pieces stitches created by women highly on very strong medication, opiates, in a mental health centre in Kosovo, who could barely hold a needle, but they really wanted to have their voice on there. So it's never been about skill level, or it's just purely about the opportunity to share voice at this time. Yeah.
Do you, this is probably a really mean question to ask, but do you have a favourite section of the dress?
No, I could never choose. I can never choose that. But what I do love now is how they all talk to each other, and how they are like a conversation, and how I hope now that it reads as one piece of work. So for a time there, before the dress was worked on in the last few years as a completed garment. Before then, it was looking quite blocky because it was all just panels which were sent out and then put in. And then in the last few years, once the final skirt had been set, and I had funding, so then people could work on the dress directly. So it allowed, lovely kind of filling in of gaps, but also the opportunity to respond to what was already there. So there is some beautiful little conversations actually happening between women that may never meet in person, but that one of them was so moved by what the other had created and then wanted to be near her and respond in some way. So yeah, I just love them all together, how they talk to each other.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's just you can't describe it, to be honest, when you actually see it. And I know that it had a really good reaction when it was in Kirklees, when I was lucky enough to go and see it myself. What kind of feedback do you get from people when they encounter the dress for the first time?
Yeah, it's actually such a privilege to be able to see, literally physically be in the space, to see people walking in, and there's often sometimes you might have someone that might cry or maybe has to move back because they find it's too powerful and take time to come forward. Others rush straight in and just want to be like as close as possible and take it all in. So I'm very blessed to say that wherever the dress is in the world, wherever she's being exhibited, I receive so many messages, Instagram taggings, collaborations from people, just saying how much they've enjoyed seeing her and what it meant to them, and lots of gratitude messages. And also blessed to say that I think without question, without any in all cases, the audience numbers have been at least double, often triple, sometimes quadruple what that venue would normally have. And even record numbers, I've been told as well. So it's just a lovely thing to know that what the dress clearly does is able to connect with people from all different backgrounds. That's the other thing people say, is they've never had such diverse audience. Especially in this country, in some museums, generally you might get a particular type of person going, and there are lots who maybe don't feel they have the access or the confidence or the money, goodness, to go to, certain museums and things. So yeah, it's really lovely that, that the dress is able to provide something that interests most people, and very rarely do people ever charge for you to go and see her, which I really like as well. So it's always open and accessible to everyone.
That must surely then, to you must feel so proud that this thing that you've been, I can't say really created, because it was created by so many people, but your baby, which you wanted to include the stories of so many people from so many different walks of life. People from these walks of life can engage with her as well. It's just, it's kind of come full circle now, hasn't it? Yes. You've included the stories, and then everybody else wants to come and see it, and clearly it resonates with so many people and from all walks of life. It's just amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I know that the red dress has been an inspiration to other projects and spin-offs as well. Can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, so there's actually a dedicated section on the website now, because there's so many people were getting in touch saying that they'd seen the dress, mostly in person, but sometimes online, and felt motivated to create either their own garment personally or collaboratively with their group or school. Or so there's been like stitch groups around the world. There's primary schools, secondary schools, individuals. It's just amazing to me. I remember when the first few came through, I was like, wow, really? Oh my goodness, this is incredible. And then I realized with the completion of the red dress in 2023 that there really was this desire, this need by so many to come together in collaboration with a shared purpose and a common intention. So that's when I launched the Calico Garment Initiative, which is part of the greater project now. So you can be involved by creating your own collaborative garment, which is either a simplified version of the red dress or a cloak. So that opens it up to men and children as well. And Gail, my collaborator, and I, who helped me make the red dress, she's my long-term collaborator, teacher, amazing woman. I lives in Derby. We either give the garment as a finished sewn up piece or in 11 pieces, just hand it over, and then you can do what you like with it. And then I share it all through the red dress social media channels, and then everyone gets their own dedicated page on the website. And then every few years we're going to do exhibitions with the red dress and then all the calico garments. in collection, like a family, I think. So all going well, there's going to be a big one in Massachusetts in the Fuller Craft Museum in 2029, which will have the red dress and then all the garments. There's currently 13 in creation.
Goodness.
Around the world. Yeah. Wow. So there's a cloak in Ecuador, a dress in India. I think there's 3 dresses in England now, 1 in Wales. And I get lots of inquiries all the time, which is lovely. And then sometimes it's for maybe budget or resources or time or facilities, it just doesn't quite work. So then I just say, well, look, just go and do your thing and just let me know when you finished it, and I'll put it on the inspired by section in the website. So there's kind of 2 different things. So you can do your own thing however you want to, or you can kind of come in within the Red Dress family and kind of share the journey in a bit more of a deeper way.
Oh, that's fantastic. So there's no barrier to entry for people who want to contribute in some way, shape or form. Oh, that's fabulous. So what next for the Red Dress? Yeah. You've talked about this in 2029. Clearly you've got a huge route mapped out for yourself.
Yes. So exhibitions are ongoing, and I'm in my mind, I'm thinking that I probably will need to retire her in about 2030. I mean, maybe there'll be a few one-offs, but I think the wear and tear is considerable, being wrapped up and rolled and flown here and there and then on a stand. And so in terms of conservation, that's kind of my plan. So at the moment I'm beginning to think about where she will rest, ideally in a museum near me in southwest of England, but let's see. So I'm beginning to kind of put feelers out on that side of things, because I want her to be on permanent display somewhere, not in a drawer. And I would like the greater project to also be exhibited alongside, so people can come and continue to have an immersive experience. So for me now, I'm focusing on documentation and preservation. So the book has just been released 2 months ago, which is very exciting, published by Quickthorn Books. And then I'm working on a digital embroidery archive, so cataloguing the entire dress, in minute detail, which will all then be linked to the digital red dress, which you can see on the website already, which was created by Bar University. So the idea is that there's an immediate resource, either to experience within an exhibition context or just on the website, or in education, where you can click on the red dress and kind of move and interact with her. Then you can click on a panel and it will tell you everything, the embroiderer's name, photograph, stitch type, thread type, everything. Once that's done, then I can rest easy that when I'm gone, there's enough content to keep, all the information there. And then I'm also doing workshops. I'm doing ongoing workshops, which I love doing. And I'm just actually applying now for some funding to be able to offer free workshops to charities and event spaces around the UK, just because it's the whole idea of money is very irritating to me. I just want to be able to offer experiences, but then I do need to pay my bills as well. So just trying to navigate that one. So lots to be getting on with.
Oh, that's absolutely fascinating. Well, honestly, Kirstie, it's been a real privilege to speak to you, and thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story and the story of the red dress with me, because it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure. It's been lovely to chat.
The red dress is a truly stunning piece of work, both physically, visually, and in terms of the logistics and people involved in its creation. In fact, this year it was recognised by the Guinness World Records as the largest collaborative embroidery project ever created. If you'd like to find out more about the red dress, including learning more about the stories of the individuals who've added stitches to it, you can find a link to the red dress website in the show notes for this episode. My thanks again to Kirstie for agreeing to come on to Making Stitches podcast and for sharing the story of the red dress with us. My thanks to you too for listening. If you would like to support my podcast production, you can find links to buy me a virtual coffee or to visit the Making Stitches shop in the show notes too. That's all for this time, I'm afraid, but I'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with more creative chat for you. Until then, though, do take care of yourself and enjoy your crafting.